The message wasn't public at first. It wasn't posted. It wasn't tweeted. It didn't come with a diss track or a dramatic video. It came through back channels, quiet, deliberate, full of weight. He ain't welcome in Houston. That's all it said. No name. No signature. But 50 Cent knew exactly where it came from. And he wasn't the kind of man to let that slide. Within 24 hours, whispers turned into smoke. Promoters pulled out. Security teams tightened. An event that was already planned, 150 had been advertising, was suddenly getting complicated. He picked up his phone and started recording. No script. No warning. Just a look. A stare straight into the lens. Like he was talking directly to the source. You don't get to control the air I breathe, homie. He didn't name Jay Prince. Not yet. But everyone watching knew exactly who he meant. And if they didn't, they will by the end of the clip. Look, man, he continued. I don't know what kind of old school politics y'all playing down there, but I don't do extortion. I never did. Never will. He leaned closer. Try that scare tactic, asterisk on someone else. I come with my own army. It was cold, calm, lethal. The internet lit up instantly. 50 versus Jay Prince started trending within an hour. Fans started connecting dots. Old interviews, sudden tension, comments that once seemed vague but now looked loaded. People started pulling receipts. Promoters who had gone silent now quietly confirmed that calls were made. Pressure had been applied. One source even leaked a text message chain between a Houston club owner and someone tied to the Prince family. The message read, "If you book him, you're booking problems." 50 posted that screenshot with one caption. "This the game y'all playing? Cool. Let's play." He didn't stop with a caption. The next day, 50 Cent dropped a second video. Longer, sharper. This time, no smile, no smirk, no jokes. Just energy. The kind of energy you only recognize if you've ever had to climb out of the streets with one hand on your back and the other on your chest. "This ain't about a city," he said. "It's about control." He paused, looked down, then back up. "You trying to tell people who can come in, who can perform, who can build. You trying to run Houston like it's yours. But I don't need your blessing to stand anywhere in this country. I earned that." The video exploded. Even artists who normally stayed silent reposted it with cryptic captions. Facts. Finally, someone said it. Been waiting for this. Suddenly, the silence from Jay Prince's side became louder than words. Blogs reached out. Media outlets asked for statements. Not a single word came back. Not a denial. Not a deflection. Just silence. Which only made things worse. Because when 50 smells fear, or pride disguised as silence, he doesn't stop. He doubles down. The following day, he went on the Breakfast Club. Charlemagne didn't even have to ask. 50 brought it up before the first question landed. "Let me ask y'all something," he said, leaning in. "When did grown men start banning other grown men from cities? That sound like leadership to you? Or fear dressed in respect?" DJ Envy winced. Charlemagne stayed quiet for once. "They told me," 50 continued, "if I went down there without checking in, something might happen. What's that sound like to you? Hospitality or extortion?" That clip alone hit 3 million views in 8 hours. Now the conversation had shifted. It wasn't about beef. It was about something bigger. Gatekeeping. Control. Fear disguised as tradition. Back in Houston, club owners started getting nervous. They'd never seen a pushback this loud, this fast. Some tried to walk it back. Others stayed quiet. But one anonymous insider told a podcast host, 50's saying what a lot of people been thinking for years. The only difference is, he ain't scared to say it out loud. And somewhere, Jay Prince was watching. Still silent. But the silence was cracking. The crack turned into pressure. Not just from the public, but from the people inside. Behind the scenes, longtime associates of Jay Prince started to feel the heat. Not because 50 was dangerous, but because 50 was right. And when someone is both bold and right, fear doesn't stop them. It follows them. Industry veterans, ones who had once moved quietly in the orbit of Rap-A-Lot, began receiving messages. Some are warning shots. Some are questions. Most were just nervous whispers. Is he really going to take this all the way? The answer? Yes. Because 50 Cent doesn't just clap back. He documents. And when the machine tries to run back a narrative, he leaks it first. The next day, 50 posted a throwback photo of himself with a high-profile Houston promoter from 2011. The caption was simple. We've been good. What changed? Comments lit up. People knew what that meant. The game had shifted not because of a new issue, but because someone behind the curtain wanted control that wasn't theirs to claim. That same night, an anonymous source sent 50 a voicemail. It was short, distorted, the kind of call you don't make unless you believe no one's listening. Tell him he better check in. Houston, don't forget. 50 didn't flinch. He posted it. Right to Instagram. This the kind of S***scale praise. He wrote, calling yourselves OGs while sending kids to make calls? Nah, I don't fold for threats. Not then, not now. And just like that, the power started slipping. Not from 50's hands, from theirs. Podcasts, panels, even mainstream anchors started asking the real questions. What is checking in, really? Is Houston a city or a gate? Who actually runs the culture? And who just holds a clipboard? 50 stayed quiet after the post. He didn't need to explain the moment. He had already shifted the burden of proof. And somewhere, as the conversation kept climbing, Jay Prince sat with a phone in his lap and a silence that no longer felt strategic. It felt like checkmate. The response didn't come as a press release. It came from a stage. A local event in Houston, private, invite only, packed with industry types and longtime loyalists. Jay Prince stepped up to the mic for what was meant to be a short speech. It turned into something else. No names were mentioned, but the message was clear. Some people forget where they are. Houston ain't a game. We build something here, something that's bigger than one man and his camera phone. Respect ain't optional. The crowd nodded. Some clapped, but others, they shifted in their chairs. Because behind the weight of that speech was something that no longer carried the same edge it once had. Fear had left the building. By the next morning, 50 had already seen the clip. His response wasn't long. Just a video of him sitting poolside in Miami, sipping something cold, sun on his face. He looked straight into the lens and said, respect is earned, not inherited. Then he laughed. Also, I got family in Houston. Real ones. Asked them how I move. Asked them if I ever checked in. No further comment. And he didn't need one. Because the industry was already reacting. Labels, managers, even venue owners began backing off the gatekeeping model entirely. Quiet policies changed. Bookings that once required calls for approval no longer did. Rappers who'd been blocked from performing in certain clubs started getting invites again. What 50 had done wasn't just clap back. He had lifted the curtain. And what was exposed underneath, it was bigger than one city or one man. It was the unspoken rulebook that dictated fear. And now it was burning. Somewhere in Houston, a young artist posted on Twitter, we needed this. We all knew, but we needed someone with reach to say it out loud. Another responded. 50 didn't just say it. He dared them to stop him. And no one could. Because no one expected the war to be won with screenshots, silence, and receipts. They expected noise. But 50 had rewritten the script. He made exposure the new weapon. The phone call wasn't planned. It wasn't recorded. But it happened. A quiet intermediary, someone respected by both camps, someone with nothing to prove, set it up after 3 weeks of tension and headlines. The goal wasn't peace. It was understanding. 50 Cent answered without hesitation. Jay Prince picked up after a pause. What followed wasn't a shouting match. It was a conversation between two men who built their names off control. One through tradition, the other through disruption. Jay Prince spoke first. You're messing with things you don't understand, homie. 50 didn't flinch. No, he said. I understand is fine. I understand fear when I smell it. And I understand what happens when people confuse presence for ownership. There was silence. Then Jay Prince replied, this city runs on structure, respect, loyalty. 50 leaned in. No, this city runs on fear disguised as tradition. And that only works until someone decides the tradition doesn't work anymore. Another pause. No threats were made. No apologies offered. But the weight shifted. Because in that moment, both men knew this wouldn't end in violence. It wouldn't end in club bans or leaked voicemails. It would end with narrative. And 50 had already won that war. Days later, the industry began choosing sides, but not with words. With actions. Venues that once filtered their artist list through unseen gatekeepers now opened bookings directly. A-list acts scheduled shows in Houston with no calls made. Media outlets started running features not just on 50, but on the artists who had been quietly blackballed for years. a new term began trending. No more gatekeeping. It was printed on shirts, pinned in bios, hashtagged by rappers who once played silent just to stay safe. And 50? He didn't spike the football. He just posted one more clip, standing on a stage in Houston. Crowd screaming. Lights up. Mic in hand. He looked out at the thousands in front of him and said, I told you, this ain't about beef. It's about freedom. Then he raised the mic again and rapped. Not for the internet. Not for the headlines. For everyone who never got to stand on that stage without permission. After that night, the clip of 50 performing in Houston went everywhere. Not because he returned with drama, but because he returned without asking. No check-in. No security drama. No cosigns. Just him, a mic, and a crowd that knew exactly what that moment meant. And what it meant was this. The system had cracked. The people who once held invisible keys, who decided who got welcomed, who got watched, who got warned, were now being watched themselves. Whispers turned into interviews. Producers, club owners, promoters, some with faces you've never seen, but names that live in the back of booking emails, started going on podcasts, radio shows, and live streams. One promoter said it outright. There's a lot of money that changed hands over the years just to stay in Houston's good graces. People don't talk about it because it's respect, but it's really fear. Another added, 50 ain't scared. That's why this moment is bigger than him. He exposed the blueprint. And it was true, because after 50, it wasn't just about him. Artists who had once been pushed to the edges started to return, not just to Houston, but to any space where silence had been the price of admission. One Southern rapper posted, For years they told us to move smart when we came here. Now we moving loud. And still, J. Prince stayed mostly silent. A few cryptic captions here and there. A photo with the word discipline written across it. A long post about real ones not doing it for likes. But the narrative had moved on without him. Because this time, fear didn't trend. Truth did. At a panel on independent artistry, an exec who'd worked with both men summed it up perfectly. When gatekeeping is the tradition, speaking up becomes rebellion. And right now, 50 just made rebellion fashionable again. Back in New York, 50 was already moving forward. No victory lap, no diss track, just production meetings, tour planning, new projects. A journalist asked him on the red carpet if he thought things would ever get back to normal. He smirked. That was the problem, he said. Normal never worked for us. I just reminded people they don't have to play along anymore. Then he walked off, chains swinging, camera flashes catching the slight grin on his face. Not cocky, not defiant, just satisfied. Because when you survive the system, and then flip it inside out, you don't gloat, you build a new one. The montage began with whispers. Clips of rappers who once avoided the topic, now dropping bars with double meanings. Subtweets became statements. Stories once left in the dark, now pushed into the feed with full clarity. A DJ in Atlanta played an unreleased verse during a late-night set. The crowd didn't know what they were hearing until the third line hit. I ain't asked no gatekeeper just to rock my city. I ain't kissed no ring just to walk in free. The room erupted. Someone streamed it, then posted it. Another artist going 50 mode. That's what they started calling it, 50 mode. Not a diss, not a beef, a stance. Suddenly, it wasn't just 50 who was freer. Other artists, especially ones without major backing, started moving differently. They booked tours directly. They hit cities they were once warned against. They walked through doors they were told were locked. Because once someone shows you the door was never locked at all, you stop asking permission to walk through it. J. Prince's network felt it. Quietly. Booking requests slowed. A few long-time gate enforcers were suddenly unreachable. A well-known promoter left a group chat after being called out by name on a Spaces conversation. No threats. No violence. Just the sharp weight of exposure. In an interview, Meek Mill commented on it subtly. This new generation ain't scared of gatekeepers. Especially when OG's out here making it look more about ego than legacy. Drake said nothing, but he posted a photo with 50, no caption, just the eyes emoji. That was enough. The room tilted. Meanwhile, 50 kept building. He wasn't done, because the war he started wasn't about Houston. It wasn't even about J. Prince. It was about fear, about finally showing people that fear is expensive and freedom is profitable. At a closed-door industry event, one top exec said to another, We might be witnessing the last days of the old power structure. The other replied, nah, it's already gone. They just haven't felt the collapse yet. And somewhere backstage, 50 was watching a young artist soundcheck at a venue he once needed clearance to enter. He leaned over to a friend and said, see that? That's the sound of no more permission. The shift wasn't sudden. It unfolded quietly. Contracts changed. Phone calls weren't returned. Names that once cleared stages started disappearing from the back end. Jay Prince didn't vanish, but the force of his presence softened. The legacy remained. The history didn't move. But the grip? Gone. You could feel it at festivals. Places where once names were quietly run past the family before posters went live. Now, artists just showed up, and no one stopped them. Not because they were reckless. Because 50 Cent had cracked the silence open, and the silence never came back. One venue owner in Dallas said it during a panel. Gatekeeping only works when people believe in the gate. And the belief was gone. Even those who once enforced it started moving different. Slowly. Carefully. But different. In Houston, a new generation of artists began speaking openly. Some with caution. Others with confidence. But the pattern had changed. They weren't playing defense anymore. They were claiming their space. One artist, a local rapper who never left the city, posted a freestyle that went viral overnight. Try to tell me I couldn't eat on my own street. Then Fifth came through and shook loose the whole seat. Now I step where I want, say what I feel. And if they don't like it, they can deal with the real. 50 reposted it. No caption. Just a flame emoji. Because he didn't need to add anything. He'd already said it all. Months later, during a filming break on one of his new shows, a young reporter asked him if he thought the moment had passed. He shook his head. Moments pass. Shifts stay. Then he added, you can't put the rules back in the box once people stop following them. He wasn't bragging. He was explaining what happens when someone trades fear for freedom and wins. One final scene. 50 stands in the middle of a sold-out arena. Not in New York. Not in LA. Houston. The crowd's loud. Unified. Free. He doesn't yell. He doesn't preach. He just looks out and says, they tried to lock the doors. So I bought the building. And the lights went out. But no one left in silence. Because silence doesn't live here anymore. The conversation was never supposed to include Rick Ross. He had his own empire, his own lane, his own throne. He'd watched the 50 Cent versus Jay Prince situation from the shadows, saying nothing, making no moves. But the shift that followed, that got his attention. He wasn't watching a beef. He was watching a blueprint. It started with a single interview. A casual podcast filmed in Miami. Ross leaned back in his chair, sipping from a glass, when the host tossed him the question like it was harmless. You ever feel like the industry got rooms you're not invited into? Ross paused, smiled, and said, what makes you think I ain't the one building the rooms now? The room laughed. But the silence after was heavy. And he leaned in, eyes clear. There's power moves, and then there's the illusion of power. What Fifth just did. He broke the illusion. He didn't name Jay Prince. He didn't need to. Because what he was really doing, right there, live on camera, was flipping the spotlight. They call it checking in. I call it paying rent on property you already own. If I made my name, if I build my fan base, if my people love me, how you gonna tell me I need permission to show up? The quote caught fire. Clipped. Memed. Shared in pieces across every platform. A new phrase started spreading in the comments. Ross just flipped the locks. Next thing you knew, he dropped a verse, quietly, no promo. A guest feature on a rising artist tape. But buried in the second verse was this. I don't knock the gatekeepers, but I own the land they guarding. I show up like I never left. Cause legacy don't need warning. Now it wasn't just 50 who had momentum. Ross had picked up the hammer. A shift started to happen among executives. Younger label heads, mid-level A&Rs, even some of the old-school managers. They started asking real questions. Who really controls access? Are we gatekeeping or just stuck in old patterns? What if we've been calling fear loyalty this whole time? Meanwhile, 50 saw the move. Respected it. He dropped a single fire emoji under Ross's clip. That was it. No phone call. No handshake photo. Just mutual recognition. Two kings, different coasts, same playbook. And Jay Prince? Still silent. But this time, the silence wasn't strategy. It was shadow. Because as the voices grew louder, from Ross, from independent artists, from fans tired of rules that served no one. The myth that once surrounded Houston's power web began to thin. What 50 started, Rick Ross had just escalated.